You need to leave right now.
I'm not going anywhere until we talk.
Countless late nights, early mornings, but tonight felt different. A patrol car rolled up with a harsh squeal of brakes. The door swung open, and Officer Harland stepped out, shoulders broad, eyes sharp and unreadable. Marcus froze, the sound of boots on concrete echoing like a warning. "You again," Harland said, voice low, clipped. "Don't think I don't see you." Marcus swallowed. "I'm just finishing my shift," he said, keeping his tone even, careful. "Shift? You? Nobody really notices you," Harland sneered, stepping closer. The badge on his chest caught the harsh light. "Maybe you should remember your place." Heat rose to Marcus's cheeks. The words stung, simple, cutting, but worse was the quiet that followed from the few night shift workers huddled near the break room. Silence, like they were all holding their breath, waiting for someone to break. Marcus clenched his fists. He wanted to speak, to stand tall, but the weight of authority pressed down, uniform, gun, rules. He forced a nod and tried to move past. Harland blocked his path. "Where do you think you're going, nobody?" The single word hit like a slap, echoing through the empty warehouse. Marcus's heart pounded. Something inside him snapped. He'd been underestimated, ignored, belittled, but he wasn't nothing. Not tonight. A beep from his concealed badge vibrated in his pocket. A reminder. He had a secret Harland would never see coming. And just like that, the warehouse shifted, from a place of routine to a battlefield of power, fear, and revelation. Cliffhanger, Marcus's hand hovered over his badge. Harland's eyes narrowed, oblivious to the storm about to break. The warehouse hummed with fluorescent lights, each buzzing tube a small reminder of monotony. Marcus adjusted his gloves, feeling the worn leather against his palms, scanning the stacks of boxes like he always did. Night shifts were long, predictable, but tonight, it already felt off. The echo of boots on concrete cut through the low hum of machinery. Marcus looked up. A patrol car had pulled up at the side entrance, brakes screeching like a warning. Officer Harland stepped out, broad shoulders squared, jaw tight. Marcus froze. "You again," Harland said, voice low, almost threatening. "Don't think I don't see you." "I'm just finishing my shift," Marcus said, measured. His heart thumped, but his voice stayed even. Harland leaned forward, eyes sharp, scanning every inch of him. "Shift? You? Nobody really notices you. Maybe you should remember your place." Marcus's stomach twisted. He had heard variations of this before, the whispers, the dismissive looks, but coming from Harland, it carried weight. Power. Threat. The others stayed silent, huddled near the break room. Even the machines seemed to quiet in anticipation. Marcus started, then stopped. Words didn't feel enough. Fear gripped him, but anger simmered underneath. Harland stepped closer, blocking the path. "Where do you think you're going, nobody?" Marcus's hand twitched toward his pocket, feeling the concealed badge beneath his shirt. A reminder of who he really was, and what Harland would never see coming. A co-worker muttered behind him. "Just ignore him." Marcus's jaw tightened. Ignoring it would mean submitting. But confrontation could mean exposure. Harland smirked, sensing hesitation, relishing control. "Come on, you don't belong here," he said, voice rising slightly. Marcus's pulse raced. He breathed in, steadying himself, scanning the room, calculating. Every option had a cost. Then, a beep, a subtle vibration under his shirt. His credentials were ready. The night could shift. Harland didn't know. He couldn't see it coming. Marcus's eyes met Harland's. Silent, sharp, unflinching. The warehouse felt smaller, tighter, the air thick with tension. And then, Harland leaned closer, his voice dropping. "I said, nobody." Marcus's fingers brushed the badge. Time slowed. The moment teetered on the edge. Cliffhanger, Harland didn't know he had underestimated the wrong person. The warehouse smelled of cardboard and cleaning solvent, the faint tang of dust in the air. Marcus leaned against a stack of boxes, trying to steady his breathing. Harland's words still stung, bouncing around in his head like broken glass. "Nobody." The word cut deeper than any slap. A co-worker, Jessie, approached, eyes cautious. "Marcus, you okay?" she asked quietly, voice barely carrying over the hum of machines. "I'm fine," Marcus said, masking the tension in his tone. His mind raced. He'd seen Harlan's type before, arrogant, dismissive, untouchable. But Marcus wasn't just a worker. Not tonight. Jesse glanced toward the exit, then back. He's really out to get you, isn't he? Marcus shrugged, letting his calm exterior settle over the storm inside. It's not personal. It's just how he sees the world. Harlan's footsteps echoed again. Marcus felt the chill. He knew the officer was patrolling the lot, probably scanning for him. The uniform carried power, authority, an unspoken threat. Every gesture, every glance could escalate in seconds. Marcus crouched to scan the inventory list, eyes flicking across item codes, but his mind was elsewhere. He thinks I'm nothing. He doesn't know who I really am. The concealed badge in his pocket burned against his skin, a quiet pulse of potential. Another co-worker, Lewis, leaned in. You should report him, he whispered, glancing nervously toward the patrol car parked outside. Or, at least let management know. Marcus shook his head. It won't matter. Harlan has friends. Influence. Rules bend for him. If I go in openly, he'll know I'm watching. Jesse frowned. So, what do you do? Marcus exhaled slowly. I wait. I watch. I gather proof. He glanced around, eyes sharp, taking in the small details, security cameras, the rhythm of shifts, Harlan's predictable patterns. Every nuance was another thread he could use. The sound of a door slamming echoed. Harlan appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. Thinking about me again, nobody. Marcus's pulse quickened. The words were meant to intimidate, to unbalance him, but he held steady. Yes, Marcus said, meeting the officer's gaze evenly. But not for the reason you think. Harlan's smirk faltered, just slightly. A flicker of unease crossed his features before he masked it. Watch yourself. Marcus let the moment linger, the tension stretching thin. He knew the officer underestimated him. He always did. Cliffhanger, Marcus caught Harlan checking the cameras, unaware that Marcus's own recording device had already started capturing everything. The night air outside the warehouse was cold, sharp against Marcus's skin as he stepped out for a quick break. The hum of fluorescent lights inside had been replaced by the distant rumble of traffic, the occasional bark of a stray dog. But the tension followed him, coiling tight around his chest like a steel band. From across the lot, he noticed a figure leaning against a lamppost. An older woman, arms crossed, coat pulled tight, eyes flicking toward the patrol car. She had seen it all, the small ways Harlan exerted his power, the tiny microaggressions that most would shrug off. Yet she didn't intervene. Not yet. Marcus took a slow breath. Even here, it's a stage, he muttered under his breath. Harlan thrived on fear, on silence, on the illusion that he could dominate without consequences. Harlan's boots hit the concrete behind him. Marcus stiffened. Thought you could sneak a break, nobody, the officer sneered. I'm just getting some air, Marcus replied, calm, measured. His words were deliberate, each one a small defiance, a test of boundaries. The woman shifted slightly, glancing away. Marcus noticed her fear, but also her curiosity, the silent acknowledgement of the injustice. She was a witness, silent, but potent. Harlan's smirk tightened. Don't think your little tricks will change anything. You're under my watch. Marcus's hand brushed his jacket pocket. The badge was there. Hidden. Ready. The power dynamic was shifting slowly, invisibly. You watch too much, Marcus said softly, letting the words carry an edge Harlan didn't expect. Sometimes the quiet ones see everything. Harlan's eyes narrowed. Something in the calm defiance unsettled him. He took a step forward, hand hovering near his belt. Marcus didn't flinch. A car door slammed in the distance. The sudden sound made Harlan jerk, breaking his rhythm. Marcus caught the small smirk of satisfaction forming on the woman's face across the lot. She had noticed. She had registered that the worker wasn't what he seemed. Harlan turned, muttering under his breath, scanning the lot. You're playing with fire, nobody. Marcus's pulse was steady. Maybe, but I've got matches too. The lamppost cast long shadows, stretching across the empty parking lot like fingers. Every step, every glance carried stakes. Every moment was a test. Cliffhanger, as Marcus re-entered the warehouse, he felt Harlan's gaze on him, and a subtle vibration from his concealed device confirmed that the night's events were being recorded. Every intimidation, every word, every threat. The warehouse seemed smaller than usual. Shadows clung to corners where the lights flickered, and every sound, metal scraping, a distant engine, boots on concrete, felt amplified. Marcus moved through the rows of crates with careful precision, glancing at the security monitors along the wall. Each camera angle was predictable: the loading dock, the entrance, the break room. But he knew where the blind spots were, the areas Harland never checked. "Marcus!" a voice barked. Harland had returned, flanked by the night security guard, a bulky man whose expression was unreadable. "Where do you think you're going?" Marcus straightened, careful not to flinch. "Just organizing inventory," he replied, his tone even, masking the surge of adrenaline behind his chest. Harland stepped closer, boots scraping the concrete. "Organizing? Or sneaking around, pretending you belong?" His gaze swept the floor, as if every inch of Marcus's body was being weighed, measured, and found wanting. The security guard lingered in the shadows, silent, a looming presence that made Marcus's pulse thrum. He could see the unspoken instructions in Harland's eyes: press him, intimidate him, remind him he was nobody. Marcus exhaled slowly. "I belong wherever I choose," he said. The words were sharp, low, a quiet warning wrapped in calm. Harland's jaw tightened. "Bold words for a nobody," he sneered, stepping to the side and signaling the guard. "Make sure he doesn't wander off again." The guard moved closer, deliberately blocking Marcus's path. Marcus's mind raced. Every step, every word, every subtle movement could escalate this further. He couldn't afford a mistake, not here, not now. "You really think you're clever, don't you?" Harland continued, voice low, almost a hiss. "I've dealt with people like you before. Small, invisible, thinking they can hide behind rules or shadows. You're under my watch." Marcus's fingers brushed the badge in his pocket. He resisted the urge to reveal it too soon. Timing was everything. Patience was power. He kept his expression calm, but inside, his mind was a whirlpool of strategy. A crate shifted behind him. He froze, realizing Lewis had been quietly observing from the edge of the stack. The co-worker's eyes were wide, anxious, caught between fear and the desire to step in. Marcus gave him the slightest nod, not permission, just recognition. "Keep still. Let this play out." Harland's eyes followed the movement. "See, everyone's watching you now, laughing at your attempts. You're laughable." His tone was venomous, coated with authority, a punch designed to wound without physical touch. Marcus squared his shoulders. "Or maybe they are just learning who's really paying attention," he said. The words landed like a soft slap, carrying more weight than he allowed. The security guard snorted, muttering something under his breath. Harland's gaze flicked to him, warningly. "Don't interrupt." Marcus's heart raced. The room felt tighter, the walls leaning in, every shadow amplified by the flickering lights. Every surveillance camera, every uniformed figure, every watchful coworker added layers to the tension. He knew exposure could come from any direction, not just Harland, but the system he represented. "Why don't you just disappear?" Harland snapped, leaning in close. His scent, a mixture of leather, cigarette smoke, and authority, hit Marcus like a physical wave. "Nobody needs you here. Not me. Not anyone." "I don't disappear," Marcus said softly, letting each word land deliberately. "And I'm not nobody." Harland's smirk faltered for the briefest moment. Marcus caught it, savoring the subtle crack in the officer's armor. But he didn't pause. He needed more. Every second could shift the balance. Harland waved a hand toward the exit. "Step outside, nobody. Let's see how bold you really are." Marcus followed, deliberately slow, letting the tension build. Outside, the night was darker, cooler, the streetlights casting long, uneasy shadows. The guard followed, silent but imposing, while Harland's boots echoed in the empty lot. "You think this is a game?" Harland spat. "You have no idea what you're up against." "I know exactly who you are," Marcus said. He kept his voice calm, eyes locked on Harland's. "And what you are?" Harland's fingers twitched near his belt. "Careful," he warned, his tone suddenly low and threatening. "You're getting too smart for your own good." The night stretched. The wind rustled papers on a nearby crate, and a distant car horn echoed. Marcus's fingers brushed the concealed badge again, feeling its quiet vibration. Every second passed with weight, a countdown Marcus alone could feel. "Why are you still here?" Harland demanded, stepping closer. His shadow merged with Marcus's in the pale light. "You should know your place by now." Marcus tilted his head slightly, letting the words land. "I know my place," he said, carefully measured. "It's right here." Harland's smirk returned, sharper this time. "Bold," he muttered, voice heavy with contempt. But bold doesn't mean safe. A subtle sound, a cell phone vibrating in Marcus's pocket, alerted him. He pressed a button, the tiny device starting a discreet recording. Harlan didn't notice, didn't suspect. Every word, every intimidation tactic, every coded threat was now captured. See that? Marcus asked quietly, letting the tension stretch thin. You're being watched. Every move. Harlan blinked, confusion flashing. His confidence wavered for a fraction of a second, long enough for Marcus to see it. You, what? Harlan's voice rose, sharp and incredulous. That's impossible. Marcus smiled slightly, a shadow of satisfaction in his eyes. Nothing is impossible when you're paying attention. Harlan stepped back, his posture stiffening, his authority momentarily shaken. The guard shifted uneasily beside him. Even the night air seemed to tighten around the trio, heavy with the sudden shift in power. You don't know who you're dealing with, Harlan growled, finally regaining some control. I'll make sure. I know exactly who you are, Marcus interrupted, calm, firm, unyielding. And everyone else will too. Harlan's eyes darted toward the security monitors. He didn't see the subtle red light blinking on Marcus's device, a small, silent proof of every threat he'd made. His arrogance had made him blind. A car door slammed in the distance, breaking the taut silence. Marcus's pulse steadied. The recording was active. Every witness, every microaggression, every coded insult was now documented. Harlan took a step back, his authority challenged, his power visibly shaken. This isn't over, he muttered, voice low but venomous. Marcus's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. Oh, it's only just beginning. The night held its breath. The shadows stretched longer, the wind carrying whispers of confrontation, of tension, of justice quietly preparing to unfold. Cliffhanger, Harlan stormed back toward the warehouse, unaware that Marcus's recording device had already uploaded the encounter to a secure federal server, silently ensuring that the tide of control was about to turn. Marcus stepped back into the warehouse, the fluorescent lights buzzing above like silent witnesses. The tension from outside clung to him, heavy and sharp. He kept his pace steady, but every glance over his shoulder reminded him of Harlan and the security guard still lingering in the lot, waiting for him to slip. Jessie peeked around a stack of boxes, eyes wide. He's really trying to push you tonight, she whispered. I've never seen him like this. Marcus nodded, keeping his expression calm. It's what he does. He escalates when he senses fear, or when he thinks someone has the upper hand. Lewis shuffled closer, looking nervous. But everyone's watching now. Even some of the managers. You think they'll step in? Marcus's jaw tightened. Some will. Some won't. That's the trick. He moved toward the inventory section, eyes scanning. Each worker, each crate, each camera feed was a tiny puzzle. He could see Harlan's arrogance everywhere, like a blind mark, and it was his advantage. Harlan's boots clattered across the concrete floor again. Marcus froze for a split second. The officer's face was tight, frustration etched in the lines around his eyes. His pride had been wounded by the subtle challenge Marcus had issued outside. You think hiding behind little tricks will save you? Harlan said, voice rising. I know what you're doing, nobody. I can see it. Marcus didn't flinch. If you can see it, you still don't understand it. Harlan's glare swept the room. Workers shuffled quietly, whispering among themselves. The air was thick with fear and curiosity. Some glanced at Marcus with hope, others with caution. Every movement, every breath, was loaded with stakes. A small sound drew Marcus's attention. A box had shifted behind a stack, just enough for him to see the reflection of a security camera blinking. He noted the angle, memorized it. Harlan hadn't considered every angle. Lewis whispered again. He's definitely panicking. Marcus exhaled slowly. Not panicking, miscalculating. That's the difference. Harlan's voice cut through the warehouse, sharp and threatening. Move over, nobody. Let me through. Marcus stepped aside, but deliberately, forcing Harlan to brush against a stack of crates. The sound echoed, loud, deliberate, and Harlan flinched. A micro-twist. A small victory, barely noticeable, but it shifted the energy. Watch your step, Marcus said calmly, almost a whisper. Careful, you might trip. Harlan's eyes narrowed. You're pushing too far. And you're showing everyone how blind you've been, Marcus replied. His voice was steady, each word a small blade. A co-worker in the corner tried to speak, hesitating. Jessie shook her head subtly. Not yet. Marcus moved past Harlan, toward the back office. He allowed his fingers to brush the badge in his pocket. A soft, reassuring vibration reminded him that the evidence was safe. Every microaggression, every threat, every sneer had been captured. Harland noticed the subtle movement. What's that in your pocket? He demanded, eyes sharp. Marcus let a thin smile cross his lips. Just something you won't understand until it's too late. Harland's face tightened. He wanted control back. He wanted fear. But the power had already begun to slip. The workers' glances, the way Lewis and Jesse held their positions, the faint tension in the room, all whispered that Marcus wasn't just a worker. He was watching. A sudden clang from the loading dock startled everyone. Harland whipped around, distracted for a second too long. Marcus seized it, moving toward the cameras, making subtle adjustments, ensuring the angles captured every angle of Harland's intimidation. Another micro-twist. You're clever, Harland muttered, voice low and dangerous. Too clever. And you're arrogant, Marcus shot back. Too blind. Harland's nostrils flared. He was shaking inside, though he tried to mask it. The subtle cracks in his composure were enough for Marcus to see the tide turning. Each small misstep, each underestimation by Harland, was a thread Marcus could pull. Lewis exhaled quietly behind a stack. You're really doing it, huh? Marcus's eyes flicked to him. We're doing it, he corrected softly. I can't do this alone. But sometimes, the smallest shifts create the largest impact. Harland stepped forward suddenly, voice raised. Enough. You're testing me. Marcus's gaze didn't waver. And you're proving yourself, he said, calm but cutting. Showing exactly why rules need to be enforced, and why people like you can't operate unchecked. The officer's face went red, frustration boiling over. The security guard shifted behind him, uneasy now, aware that Harland's arrogance had led them into a trap of observation. A soft ping vibrated in Marcus's pocket. The recording device was uploading automatically, secure, invisible. Every word, every threat, every coded insult was leaving a digital trail that no human intimidation could erase. Harland's eyes flicked down, noticing nothing. He had no idea the night's events were already documented. Marcus took a small step back, letting the space between them stretch. It's funny, he said quietly. The more you push, the more you expose yourself. Harland's eyes narrowed, his fists tightening. This isn't over, he growled, stepping forward again, only to hesitate as Marcus's calm gaze met his. Even the workers, who had been cowering moments before, exchanged small glances. The subtle tension in the room whispered that something was shifting, though they didn't know exactly what. Harland's smirk wavered. You'll regret this, he hissed. Marcus let the moment hang. Silence, heavy and tense, filled the space between them. The hum of the warehouse lights, the distant sound of a truck engine, the faint vibrations from his concealed badge, all layered together into a charged rhythm. Cliffhanger. Just as Harland lunged toward the exit, muttering threats, Marcus pressed the button on his device. A soft beep confirmed the upload to a secure federal server. Every threat, every intimidation tactic, every microaggression from Harland was now preserved, ready to turn the tables. The warehouse had grown quieter. The distant hum of machines felt muted, as if the building itself held its breath. Marcus walked through the aisles, each step measured, eyes scanning, mind calculating. Harland's arrogance had been exposed, but he didn't yet know the full extent of Marcus's power. Harland appeared suddenly, boots echoing across the concrete. You think you've won, he barked. His face was flushed, anger simmering beneath forced control. You're playing with forces you don't understand. Marcus stopped, calm, letting the words hang. Maybe, he said slowly. But you've been showing everyone exactly what I do understand. Harland blinked. What are you talking about? Marcus's hand brushed the badge in his pocket. The subtle vibration reassured him. The device was secure, already transmitting to federal servers. I think it's time you understood something, he said, voice quiet but firm. I'm not who you think I am. Harland laughed, sharp and incredulous. And who am I supposed to believe you are? A security guard with delusions of grandeur. Marcus's lips curved slightly. Try a federal investigator. The words landed like a blow. Harland froze, his confidence wobbled. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, as if trying to form a threat but realizing none could match the truth. You, Harland's voice cracked, barely audible. You've been hiding all this time. Marcus nodded once. I've been observing, recording, documenting. Your behavior tonight isn't just inappropriate, it's illegal. Harlan's shoulders stiffened. That's impossible, he muttered, scanning the warehouse, his arrogance momentarily replaced by fear. I have authority here. Yes, Marcus said, stepping closer, each movement deliberate. But authority doesn't make you untouchable. Not anymore. Lewis shifted nervously, Jess's eyes wide. The other workers exchanged glances, realization dawning. The silent tension of the last few nights cracked into sharp awareness. Harlan's reign of intimidation was over. Harlan's hands clenched, knuckles white. You'll regret this, he growled. Nobody threatens me and gets away with it. You miscalculated, Marcus replied. You didn't just underestimate me, you underestimated the system, the law, and the people around you. Harlan stepped back, scanning the cameras, the workers, Marcus's calm stance. I don't understand. You will, Marcus said softly. Once management and federal oversight review tonight's recordings, you'll see exactly who's in the wrong. Harlan's face twisted in a mixture of rage and disbelief. Every word he had used to intimidate Marcus, every coded insult, every microaggression, it had been captured. Every act would have consequences. The night air carried tension like a physical weight. The warehouse, once a stage of routine and fear, had shifted. Marcus held the balance of power quietly, confidently. The very tools Harlan had relied on, authority, intimidation, silence, were now his own undoing. You can't just, Harlan began, voice trembling. Marcus raised a hand slightly, cutting him off. Watch closely, he said. Everything has consequences. Everything you've done has been recorded. Harlan's gaze darted to the cameras again, realizing the full scope of the exposure. His smirk, the one that had intimidated everyone, faltered completely. He had been blind, arrogant, untouchable, until now. Jess's whisper broke the silence. Marcus, he doesn't know what to do. Marcus allowed a faint smile. Exactly, he said, voice steady. The unseen power, the quiet ones, the observant ones, they always have the advantage when you're reckless. Harlan took a step back, visibly shaken. This isn't the end, he said, voice low, threatening, but lacking conviction. Yes, Marcus agreed, calm. It is, for tonight. Lewis exhaled, relief flooding his features. The warehouse felt lighter, less oppressive. The fear, the tension, the constant shadow of Harlan's authority, all had shifted, replaced with cautious hope. Harlan's fists trembled at his sides. He had underestimated Marcus completely. And now, for the first time, he was seeing the true cost of his arrogance. Marcus's eyes swept over the workers. Everyone saw what happened tonight, he said. Everyone knows who had power, and who abused it. Harlan's chest rose and fell rapidly. Rage, fear, humiliation, all layered together. Marcus's calm, deliberate presence highlighted the contrast. Authority without accountability had collapsed in the simplest, quietest way. Cliffhanger, as Harlan stormed toward the exit, muttering threats, Marcus tapped his device again. The subtle confirmation beep told him the footage was secure, ready for legal action, and Harlan's reckoning was only beginning. The warehouse felt different now, lighter, yet electric with tension. Marcus moved deliberately, every step measured, every glance calculated. Harlan still lingered near the exit, jaw tight, eyes flicking nervously at the cameras. The arrogance that had filled the air for weeks was gone, replaced with a faint unease. Marcus cleared his throat. Harlan, he said calmly, voice steady, deliberate. We need to talk to management. All of us. Harlan froze, his shoulders stiffening. Talk to management? You're kidding, right? I'm serious, Marcus replied. Everything tonight, everything you've done, is recorded. They need to see it. Harlan's face flushed with anger. You think you can humiliate me in front of everyone? He spat, stepping forward. I am in charge here. Nobody tells me what to do. Marcus didn't flinch. You abused your authority, he said softly but firmly. You humiliated a worker, threatened co-workers, intimidated employees, all under your uniform. That isn't leadership, it's fear. And it ends tonight. A manager, Mr. Donovan, appeared in the doorway, alerted by the commotion. What's happening here? He asked, voice cautious but authoritative. His eyes flicked to Harlan, then to Marcus. Harlan opened his mouth to speak, but Marcus held up a hand. Watch the footage first, he said. See the full story. Then we can talk about what needs to happen. Mr. Donovan nodded slowly. All right. Show me everything. Marcus activated the device. The screen blinked to life. Footage from the night, the prior weeks, every microaggression, every verbal intimidation, every coded threat, played in crisp clarity. Harlan's face paled as he watched himself from angles he hadn't considered. This can't be real, Harlan muttered, voice trembling. His smirk vanished completely, replaced by shock and panic. Reality is inconvenient sometimes, Marcus said quietly, almost gently. But it doesn't change the truth. Jesse and Lewis exchanged glances. Other co-workers peeked out from the shadows. Whispers rippled through the room. The tide had shifted. The invisible power Marcus held, the patience, the observation, the evidence, was now visible to everyone. Mr. Donovan's expression hardened. Harlan, this is serious. Your actions, these violations, they will have consequences. Harlan's voice cracked. You're overreacting. Marcus cut him off, calm and controlled. No, the record doesn't lie, and the people it affects won't stay silent. Lewis exhaled softly. He's getting what he deserves. Harlan's hands trembled at his sides. He wanted to argue, to threaten, to regain control, but the footage was irrefutable. The subtle power of the uniform, the intimidation, the fear, it was gone, replaced by undeniable evidence. Marcus's gaze swept the room. This isn't just about me. It's about everyone who's ever felt unseen, unheard, or belittled. We all deserve fairness. We all deserve respect. Harlan swallowed, realizing the walls had closed in. Authority alone wasn't enough to protect him from accountability. He had been exposed, and there was no escape. Mr. Donovan turned to Marcus. You handled this carefully, he said, voice firm but respectful. You protected yourself and documented everything. That's impressive. Marcus shrugged, a quiet tension easing from his shoulders. It's not about impressing anyone. It's about making sure the rules apply to everyone, even those who think they are above them. Harlan's voice cracked again, weaker now. You'll pay for this. No, Marcus said softly, voice calm. You'll answer for this. And that's justice. A pause stretched through the warehouse. The silence was thick, electric, carrying the weight of weeks of fear, humiliation, and abuse. And now, clarity. Jess's eyes gleamed with cautious relief. Finally, she whispered. Lewis nodded. Yeah, finally. Marcus allowed himself a small smile, but it didn't erase the fatigue in his eyes. Justice wasn't easy. Even victories left scars. But tonight, the scales had tilted. Harlan had been exposed. The fear he wielded like a weapon had been turned against him. Cliffhanger, Harlan stormed toward the exit, muttering threats, but the security team and management were already reviewing the evidence. The night had shifted irreversibly, the reckoning had begun, and there was no going back. The warehouse was quieter now, the tension lingering like a faint echo. Marcus stood near the back office, watching as Mr. Donovan reviewed the footage again, his brow furrowed in concentration. Harlan shifted uncomfortably nearby, the weight of accountability pressing down like a tangible force. You see it now, don't you? Marcus asked calmly, voice steady, each word deliberate. Harlan's eyes darted between the screens and the people around him. I don't know how this happened, he stammered, jaw tight. It happened because you underestimated the people around you, Marcus replied. You relied on fear, intimidation, and silence, but you forgot one thing. The truth always finds a way out. Mr. Donovan's expression hardened. Harlan, this is serious. Your behavior violates company policy, federal regulations, and basic decency. You will face disciplinary action and legal consequences. Harlan's shoulders slumped slightly, frustration giving way to disbelief. You can't do this to me. It's not about me, Marcus said softly, calm but unyielding. It's about accountability. And justice. Jesse and Lewis exchanged glances, relief written on their faces. Other co-workers peeked out from behind crates, witnessing the shift from fear to clarity. For weeks, they had endured intimidation and coded insults. Now, the balance of power had finally shifted. Harlan's eyes narrowed, but he remained silent. Words would not protect him. Actions, documented and undeniable, had sealed his fate. Marcus's hand brushed the badge in his pocket, a subtle reminder that authority could serve justice, not just oppression. Your reign of fear ends tonight, he said quietly, eyes steady. And everyone knows it. A faint nod from Mr. Donovan confirmed the formal reckoning was beginning. Security personnel moved closer, guiding Harlan toward an exit. The officer's steps were heavy, uncertain, stripped of the confidence that had defined him. Louis exhaled, relief flooding his features. Finally, he can't hurt anyone anymore. Marcus's gaze swept the warehouse, lingering on each worker. It's not just about one person, he said. It's about every silent witness, every person who felt powerless. Justice has to be for all of them. Harlan's voice broke the silence one last time. You'll regret this. Marcus didn't flinch. Regret? No. Awareness. Responsibility. Those are the lessons you'll carry forward. The warehouse, once a stage of fear and intimidation, now hummed with a cautious sense of closure. Shadows no longer threatened, they simply reflected the truth. Marcus's vigilance had ensured that. Jesse approached, voice soft. Marcus, you did it. You really did it. I didn't do it alone, Marcus replied, eyes calm but reflective. Every witness, every observer, they helped. Change doesn't happen in isolation. Harlan disappeared down the hallway, escorted by security, muttering threats that no longer carried power. The employees exchanged quiet murmurs, tentative smiles forming. For the first time, the workplace felt like a place where authority could not override justice. Marcus exhaled, fatigue settling into his shoulders. The night had demanded patience, courage, and strategic restraint. And though victory had been achieved, it was bittersweet. The emotional scars of intimidation, the constant pressure, lingered like shadows at the edges of his mind. Are you okay? Jessie asked, concern softening her tone. Marcus nodded slowly. I will be, he said, letting a small smile appear. It's about being resilient, not unbroken. We survive, we endure, and we make sure justice is seen and remembered. Louis leaned back against a crate, finally relaxing. You've changed things tonight. Not just for you, for all of us. Marcus's gaze swept the room one last time. Every camera, every shadow, every silent observer had played a role in exposing the truth. Harlan had been held accountable, but the emotional cost remained. The victory was real, but it came with the weight of experience, trauma, and resilience. A faint beep from Marcus's device reminded him of the evidence now secured, stored safely for review. Every threat, every insult, every act of intimidation had been recorded, documented, and preserved. Harlan's reign of fear was over. The warehouse lights flickered overhead, steady now, casting soft shadows across the room. The night had changed. The balance of power had shifted. And though the emotional cost lingered, the sense of justice was undeniable. Cliffhanger, Marcus stepped outside, feeling the cool night air. Harlan's absence was final, but Marcus knew that justice required vigilance. Tonight was won, but the fight against abuse and bias was ongoing. And he would be ready. The warehouse was quiet now, shadows stretching long across the floor. Marcus leaned against a stack of crates, rubbing the tension from his shoulders. The night had been a battlefield of words, power, and subtle maneuvers, and though justice had been served, the weight of it lingered like a shadow he couldn't shake. Jessie approached quietly, a warm cup of coffee in her hands. Here, you probably need this, she said softly. Marcus took it with a small nod, gratitude flickering in his eyes. Thanks, he murmured. He inhaled the bitter aroma, letting it ground him. It's strange. Victory feels lighter than I expected, but the echoes of the night, they are still there. Louis stepped forward as well, hands tucked into his pockets. Yeah, it's not just about him leaving or the footage. It's everything he did before. Weeks, months, the way he made you all feel. Marcus nodded slowly. It wasn't just me, he said, voice calm but reflective. It was everyone who had to endure it silently. Today was a shift, yes, but those emotional scars don't just vanish. Jessie glanced toward the empty hallway where Harlan had stormed off. Do you think he'll change? She asked quietly. Marcus exhaled, letting the tension ease slightly. I doubt it. Some people only learn when they are forced to. But it doesn't matter. What matters is accountability, transparency, and the courage of those who speak up or stand firm. Louis raised an eyebrow. You think this changes the workplace? Marcus looked around the warehouse, scanning the rows of crates, the faint hum of machinery, the security monitors still active. It has too. The fear he relied on is gone. People saw that authority isn't absolute. They saw that silence isn't powerless. That's what changes a culture, not a single person, but collective awareness and courage. Jessie smiled faintly, relief softening her features. You made it safe, at least for tonight. Yes, Marcus agreed, gaze softening. And tonight is enough. Tomorrow, we stay vigilant. That's how real change happens, slowly, carefully, without letting fear return. The air was cooler now, the tension fading, leaving a quiet reflection. Marcus felt the weight of his hidden role, the federal badge, the recordings, the evidence. The tools he had used were silent, invisible, but effective. Justice had been served, but it came with emotional cost. He stepped outside briefly, letting the night air brush against his face. The street was quiet, the distant hum of traffic soft. He thought of Harland, of the arrogance and intimidation that had dominated weeks of their lives. He thought of Jesse, Lewis, and the co-workers who had silently endured. And he thought of the silent witnesses, like the woman at the lamppost, whose presence had mattered more than they knew. Change, Marcus realized, was rarely dramatic. It was incremental. Invisible to some, quiet to most. But it was real, and tonight had proven it. Lewis spoke quietly beside him. "Do you ever get tired of fighting?" Marcus shook his head slowly. "Never. Not when it matters." He glanced back at the warehouse. But the fight isn't just about proving a point, it's about protecting people. It's about ensuring the next person doesn't have to endure what we did. Jess's eyes met his, gratitude and admiration reflected in the soft glow of the streetlights. "Then I guess we're in good hands." Marcus allowed himself a small smile, though his eyes carried the fatigue of the night. "Good hands, but still vigilant hands," he said softly. "Justice isn't a destination. It's a practice." The three of them stood in quiet reflection, the night stretching around them. Shadows and light intertwined, a reminder that clarity often came from contrast, the struggle against darkness, the assertion of truth, and the persistence of courage. Cliffhanger, Marcus's phone buzzed, a subtle alert. Another report, another situation, another chance to stand for justice. The fight wasn't over. But tonight, the scale had tipped. And he would be ready. The warehouse felt different in the morning light. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, dust motes drifting in the golden beams. Where fear and tension had once lingered, a cautious calm now settled, almost tangible. Marcus walked through the aisles slowly, taking in the familiar surroundings that now felt safer, lighter. Jesse and Lewis were already there, quietly organizing shipments. Their movements were purposeful, but their smiles were easier, unburdened. Marcus stopped for a moment, observing the change. For weeks, every glance had been shadowed by intimidation. Now, every glance reflected cautious hope. The door creaked, and Mr. Donovan appeared with a firm expression. "Harland's disciplinary hearing concluded last night," he said. "He's been suspended, and federal oversight is now reviewing his conduct." The evidence was irrefutable. Marcus nodded slowly, relief softening his features. "Good," he said. "It needed to be." Lewis exhaled deeply. "So, he won't be coming back?" "No," Marcus confirmed. "And if anyone tries to replicate that behavior, there's a clear precedent now. The system works when it's supported by courage and accountability." Jessie smiled, a faint warmth lighting her eyes. "It's different now. We can actually breathe." Marcus's gaze swept the warehouse, lingering on each worker, each shadow, each camera still quietly observing. "It's a start," he said softly. "But change isn't a single event. It's ongoing. We remain vigilant. We protect each other. We ensure fairness is enforced." The subtle hum of machines, once oppressive, now felt like background music. The threat that had loomed over weeks was gone, replaced with quiet resilience. Marcus felt the weight of the past night's lift, but not completely. The emotional scars remained, a reminder of what had been endured. A notification pinged softly from his phone. Another report, another incident. Marcus's lips curved slightly. The fight for justice never truly ended, but now the tools, knowledge, and courage were in place. The balance had shifted. Jessie approached, curiosity in her eyes. "Do you ever get tired of it?" Marcus shook his head. "No," he said calmly. "Not when it matters. It's not about the battles themselves, but the people we protect, the fairness we uphold, and the courage we inspire." Lewis chuckled quietly. "Guess that makes you a full-time guardian, huh?" Marcus allowed a faint smile. "Something like that," he said. "But guardianship doesn't require heroics. It requires vigilance, patience, and clarity. And that's something anyone can practice." The warehouse felt alive now, but not in the way of authority or fear. Alive with potential. Alive with the quiet knowledge that injustice could be challenged, that courage could create real change, and that even silent witnesses mattered. Marcus walked to the exit, feeling the cool morning air brush against his skin. He looked back at the warehouse one last time, a subtle pride in his stance. The night of intimidation and abuse had passed. A new order had been established, one of accountability, fairness, and resilience. Emotional beat, Marcus exhaled slowly, letting the tension finally leave his shoulders. The victory was bittersweet. Justice had been served, but the memory of fear and intimidation lingered. Closing dialogue, Jesse whispered softly, "Thank you for standing up." Marcus smiled faintly. "We all have to. That's how change happens. One step, one action, one witness at a time." The sun rose higher, casting long, clear shadows across the floor. The warehouse, once a place of fear and oppression, now felt like a place of cautious hope. The story of injustice had ended, but the lesson remained: vigilance, courage, and truth would always tip the scales toward justice. Final cliffhanger. Reflective beat, Marcus checked his phone one last time. Another alert. Another opportunity. He smiled faintly. The fight would continue, but now, the balance was in favor of justice.